All right, so for the first time ever, we have two guests on the podcast today, and we have my youngest sister, Bree, and subbing in for the middle child is our mom today. So we have my mom on the podcast for her first appearance, and today we're going to dive into something really close to my heart, and that is sibling relationships. And it's actually pretty fitting that, Mom, that you're on the podcast today because if anybody, I think you're going to have probably the best perspective of what our sibling relationship was like growing up, since you did raise us and what the house was like. And so, we're going to talk about what it was like growing up together, how our bond has evolved over the years, and why the relationship that you have with your siblings can be one of the most important relationships in your life. And Mom, you could probably, since you are one of six, you could shed some light
Actually,
on
one of seven, Rock.
one of seven. I'm sorry, you could shed some light over on sibling relationships as well and how they can be the most important relationships in your life. But before we get started, huge shout out to the Vertigo Center as our sponsor for this episode, as we are in the Vertigo Center right now recording this episode. All right, so let's get it going. Reed, Mom, how are you today?
Doing good.
Doing great.
Excited to be on.
Yeah, happy to
Yes.
be here.
Yes, this is awesome that we get to do this. I think, I thought this was a great thing to do and have you know, the siblings on and us talk about our relationship with each other because, definitely in my life, one of the most important relationships is my relationship with my sisters. And my sisters are literally like my best friends. So like, Bree, I'll ask you first. What is
Okay.
like, as kids, what are some of your like earliest memories of us together, like me, you, and Honey Girl?
Okay, of the three of us, I would say my earliest memories are probably like us playing together. Like, I feel like I would include Josh in that. Like, us, like, being outside, like, you teaching us, like, football routes, like, always making us go out, and even when we didn't want to, if we wanted to play inside. So, like, you teaching us that. Our trampoline, like, I feel like we were always out on the trampoline doing just, like, kid stuff like that.
So that's funny so earlier in the week, as kind of like a pre-podcast interview, I did have Honey Girl on. So Honey Girl did answer some of these questions. So Honey Girl's answers, I'll shed some light to what she said to you guys. And that was actually Honey Girl's answer as well. Was
Really?
like, yeah, it was like playing outside and just doing whatever I wanted to do because, I didn't have a brother. I had you two as sisters. And I guess
Yeah.
Josh was like that third, was, that brother. But and that
Yeah,
was
I always
Honey Girl's answer too, was playing outside and,
yeah.
just
Like I
doing.
always remember that and I think of you like we would play a game and like you'd always be like making up new rules. Like we would play and then like as the game would develop, you would be like, "All right, well now we're gonna do this and there's this new rule." I feel like that's such like a oldest brother trait to be like just like changing the games like that and like adding
I
new
think,
like challenges in.
well, I work with kids, that, and I do train younger kids too around that like 10, 11, 12-year old range. And like anytime if you give them free will to play, they always are making up their own rules. And that's just
Mhm.
kind of how it was playing like in the yard. Is you get some free play to make up your own rules, and that's where the fun comes in, you know?
Yeah.
Mom, what would you say I mean, you saw us all from when we were infants and have a better memory of those times than we do, of course. What are your earliest memories of us interacting together?
Well, first of all, my three children are close in age. So there's 22 months between the first and second, and 16 months between the second and third. So you guys were all pretty young, like Rockne, when you were when Honey Girl was born, you sort of at not even 2 years old were taking on this role as the big brother. And then, Breedy came along and it was kind of similar to that, but until Breedy came into her own a little bit at maybe around 2 years old, and she became a little bossy of both of you. But you guys definitely let Breed, since she was the baby, you both, you and Honey Girl, kind of took care of Breed as though you knew she was the baby. Also, I think because you shared a room, even when you didn't have to, wanted to all be in the same room. So you shared a room for many years. And I think that kind of kept you close for some reason. You guys are, you just always did play together. You played well together, even with your individual personalities, because each one of you are different, but you played well together always. And I think, sharing the room for some reason, I think that was like an important thing. Like bedtime, you'd go, you're
Hmm.
pretty young and you're going to bed at the same time together. And I guess you would talk to each other. And, I think Honey Girl would have to, like, I don't know if she would sing Breed to sleep sometimes. It's just, yeah, like she'd
Yeah,
read.
she would. Well, that was when it was just me and Honey Girl, but she would always like tell me stories before I go to sleep, and like
Yeah,
sometimes she would sing.
yeah, just like little things like that. And I think that kind of started, like developing the bond between you three. And then as you got older, say Rockne's playing sports and, the girls would attend all the sporting events and they're like your little cheerleaders and then vice versa, when the girls were involved in things, you guys really always just supported each other that way. You went to school together, rode the bus home together. And I don't know, just everything developed that. Plus we had Josh, Josh was sort of like a big brother. And you guys just always you just did everything together. And I guess if I were going to add one thing that I think about, which maybe kept you close too, I was fairly lenient, I think. You guys can chime in on that. But the one thing I would never really put up with is when there was fighting in between, put you guys on the guilt trip,
Hmm.
Yeah.
the fight.
Hunter and I talked about that too. I think that was one of the main things that contributed to our childhood dynamic was that like there was one rule and we were not allowed to fight. And of course we had like little fights here and there, and definitely Honey and Bree fought more than me or Bree or me and Honey Girl. Maybe not as me and Bree got older. But um but that was the rule. Like we were never allowed to fight. And I think it was almost like the wrath of if we did fight was way worse than actually fighting. So it was like we're just really not going to fight about anything.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I mean, there was always normal bickering as
Yeah,
kids, as siblings would do, but
Hmm.
you weren't allowed to really like be mean to each other or stay mad at each other for any length of time.
where it like distance us from each other. That I don't think there's ever actually been a time where there was we got really mad at each other where we had to distance each other from communication for an extended period of time. I don't know if that's ever happened, Breed, unless you remember something, but I don't
No,
I
and I
don't
was even
remember.
thinking like I can't even remember a time as like a kid where I was ever mad at Rock. Like not one like instance comes to mind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean not
Siblings, of course, would be a little bit different dynamic only because,
Yeah.
borrowing clothes or
Hmm.
wearing, without asking and
Yeah, those things
a little bit.
definitely went on.
no, we never really had any serious fights. What do you think was Do you think in the relationship, Breed, that each of us plays a role? Do we each have a role that you think that we play?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially like where we fall in like the sibling order, I feel like we all like play into that role like really well. Like you as the older brother, Honey Girl as the middle child, and then me as the youngest. I feel like I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it happened because of our age order, but I think like our personalities like match where we fall in line in that
Really?
way.
So tell me, so like explain to everybody your personality and how that fits your role as the youngest sibling
Well,
and the
I'm the
youngest and the
youngest.
youngest child too.
Yeah, I'm the youngest. I don't know. So I feel like I was always like like more sensitive and stuff like that. So like I feel like I was always, like in a way, I mean, mom always says I was really bossy, but that's just because I feel like Honey Girl let me be. So like I feel like in that way I was kind of like I would get my way and people babied me and like I liked that.
Yeah. And Honey Girl's role was definitely the funny one. I think Honey Girl was definitely the
Yes, like
funniest
she
by
had the
far.
big
The
personality. She was always
personality.
making us laugh,
Yeah.
just being silly all the
Took
time.
the took the brunt end of the jokes most of the time.
Yeah, yeah, where I feel like I was like kind of shy in that way and we were like a good balance on each other.
Yeah. Mom, do you feel like each of us had a role? Like, did you parent us differently based off of like me being the firstborn and the oldest, Honey Girl being the middle child, and then Breed being the youngest? Was there like a different way that you approached parenting each kid?
Well, I mean, you think you parent them all the same because, like parenting doesn't really come, well, at least then it didn't come with a handbook. So you just kind of did what you felt was the right thing to do to raise your children. So, but what you find out is that one thing may not work, something that may have been with you, Rockne, may not work for Honey Girl. And clearly it didn't because she's just a totally different personality. Yeah, and in a good way. I mean, like, not a bad way, just that she was always just, her own self. And so I think you learn to just accommodate to personality. I think is probably a good idea. So, what may have been like say a punishment, if it were going to be a punishment for Breed, would be a different punishment for Honey Girl because it might not make an impact on Honey Girl whatsoever. But like, or like you, Rock, if I said, you're not going to be able to play, go out and play with your friends, or, you're going to be punished and you got to stay in for 3 days, that would
Mm.
bother me a lot. But Honey Girl would be like, okay, that's okay. I'll just, do something else. I don't know. So you do sort of have to make adjustments for each.
The one thing that Hunter and I did talk about this, and I never really actually reflected on until, just preparing to do this and have this conversation, was that, the one thing, and I don't know how, and maybe it's true with other sibling dynamics, and you definitely see it in like movies and TV shows and stuff like that,
Mhm.
is that the one thing mom and dad definitely never did was they never pinned us against each other where there was like a comparison of like, hey, Rockney's doing this and he's into these things. Oh, and Honey Girl, like, why can't you be like that? Or Breed, why can't you be like Honey Girl? Or Honey Girl, why can't you look at Breed? She's this, like there was never any of that. And I think that, we were never envious of one another and like anything that we achieved or what we were doing. We were never like jealous or felt like we were competing against each other. And I think that certainly had a huge impact on our dynamic as like being friends with each other. What do you think, Bree? Do you ever feel like we were ever competing at anything?
No, I never felt like competitive. Like Honey Girl and I are so close in age and we're both girls. So I don't know. I don't think we ever felt competitive with each other because we were both like we understood how different we were, but like we were also best friends. So like, like we were just supporting each other all the
Yeah.
time and
There was
like
no
just
sense of
just
favoritism, I
happy
don't.
to like do things together or like when we did kind of like find things that were separate that we were getting into, like we just like understood that that was like your thing or like you're better at that and I'm better at this. We all I think had that.
Yeah, Mom, how did you know that like to kind of not do that or how, or did you guys know that you weren't doing that or
Well, I don't know if I was so like consciously aware of that exactly because, sibling rivalries, which is what that might be called, are sort of natural, that you can have that. But I guess because I'm one of 7 children, I'm second oldest in the lineup. And I think you realize that how, as you get older, how important the sibling bond is because there's certain things that you're going to go through in life as you get older that other people, your friends and whatever might not be able to relate on the same level as you go through it as a sibling might. So I just think that the sibling bond is really, I've just always felt like the sibling bond was very important. Now, with that said, of course, not everybody has siblings. So you have some people that are only children, they don't have siblings, but they can also kind of create sibling like bonds with people to have that extended family. But it's still something I just always felt was so important. So it was something I wanted to instill in you three because when you go through certain things, you can just depend on each other, you can support each other. And I just, always felt that that was definitely a strong family value. And dad as well felt that we just wanted that for our kids.
yeah. Bree, how do you see it that I guess as kids and now as we get older and we all kind of step into our own lives and
Mhm.
are starting to create, Honeyrell has a kid now and is starting her own family. You and Brendan are getting married in a couple months. Like, How do you feel that we as siblings have supported each other over the years, and like has that support changed, or does it look any different now than what it used to as when we were kids?
Now, as adults, it's more like, because we're kind of all in different spaces. Like, even when we were like, some of us were in college or graduated. It's like, just like knowing that I could pick up the phone and call you and like we can talk about anything, I think is like the number one way I feel supported. Like, it's like I don't always have to see you, and like you're living in Nantucket right now. So it's like, it's not that I see you every day, but I know I could call you and you would be there for me in that way. When as kids, it's like we're all living in the same house, and it's like getting that time to spend together, I felt like was probably more important. It's like if we weren't out every weekend with our friends, like I feel like we kept a good balance of like staying home and hanging out with each other, and then also like having friend time as opposed to like always being out with your friends. And it's like
Yeah,
that's, I feel like, how we stayed close then, and now I feel like it's more of just getting time to like talk to each other. Doesn't
yeah,
have to be like face to face though.
yeah. And Honey and I talked about that too, because Honey Girl said the same thing. It's kind of like it's like ride or die. It's like we're always on each other's side no matter what. It's like loyalty to a fault, really. Like we always have each other's back, no matter what. Even if you're wrong,
Mhm.
I'm still gonna have and defend and have your back. What made me think when you were talking is it's kind of interesting. Like, I mean, Honey and I are closer in age, but it's not so far different. Like, in terms of like each other's friends, like Honey Girl, you know, I mean, like I knew Honey Girl's friends and hung out with Honey Girl's friends a little bit too,
Mhm.
and then Honey Girl also knew like my friends. And I don't feel like it was like that though. Like I didn't really know your friends. I didn't really hang out with your
No.
friends, but like you kind of know my friends a little bit though.
Yeah, and I feel like as I got older, I kind of, well, you always incorporated whatever I feel like your friends were doing, like we kind of were doing too. Like if you were home, you'd be like, all right, well, girls come play with us, or.
Yeah,
And then same with Honey Girl, like wherever Honey Girl went, I went too. But then when it came to me, it's like you guys didn't have to go along with me. I guess just being the youngest, it was like I had a little bit of that freedom where like I was like, all right, well, I mean, you guys are older than me, so it's not like I'm going to take you to my friend's house, or like
yeah,
you probably don't want to play with my friends that are almost like, 3 years younger than you. Like we're just
yeah,
not doing the same thing in that way.
yeah,
But I think of that too. Like it's interesting. Like I got to be incorporated in like what Honey Girl was doing, and then like some of what you were doing, and then it's like I was just, when I was doing my thing, I was always just doing my own thing.
yeah. Everybody, we were all pretty like inclusive,
Yeah.
you know, inclusive with each other. What do you? I guess as you kind of look and like as we grow into adults and I guess essentially becoming our own people, what do you appreciate most about the way us three have kind of stuck together in our relationship and bond?
I don't know, it just makes me feel complete, I guess, that you guys have remained so close, that you understand, there's an understanding for each. You all understand each other and your different personalities, differences in your relationships, even. You've come to, like you accept each other's partners and make everybody feel included as a family. And I think that that is just a wonderful thing. That makes me feel really happy. And, I say the family's getting bigger, it's not getting smaller. So the big thing is just that, like you said, loyalty. Um, it's an interesting thing because you say ride or die, and I definitely am that way. We are kind of loyal to a fault. However, on the backside of that, that if there were something maybe wrong, or you three, I think, know each other so well that you would be one to step in and maybe give the best advice to your sibling if you
Mhm.
saw that they were making a bad decision or just something wasn't right. I think you guys might be the best advice givers just because you know each other so well. You have a strong bond and you have such a great understanding of each other. You know, I'm sorry. Did I answer the
Yeah,
question?
no, absolutely. Yeah. What have you learned, Breed? What have you learned from our relationship, or yeah, your relationship with Honey Girl and I, that you've also brought to other relationships?
Wow. Well, I would say, I guess more towards like my relationship with Honey Girl, but because we're so like different, like Honey Girl can be so like carefree and go with the flow, and I am very like type A. I like to have things my way. I like to control things. So I think in that, like, she has taught me a lot with like letting go, or just like letting the person like be who they are. Like, it's like she was never gonna like let me control her. Like, she was always gonna do like what she wanted to do. And I mean, you would never let me do that either. So I think in that way, it's taught me a lot about like everybody is just their own person in that way, and like you have to like love them and let them do what they want to do.
Yeah, and I think for myself when I think about that, I think I've brought like how we've approached our sibling relationship. I think I bring that to like my friendships too, because I
Mhm.
I definitely consider like my friends as like my brothers, and
Yeah.
so you know the same things that the same qualities that when I look at how our relationship is together, I definitely feel like I take the way I view that like our relationship and I bring it to friendships as well, which is partly I do believe why I feel like I have such strong friendships is
Yeah, me too.
because I don't while I look at them as friends, I don't necessarily look at my friends as friends. I look at them as brothers, as like part of my family, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. You
And
have
now
like that friend.
families can be dysfunctional for sure,
Mhm.
but you know, I think is what I brought from our relationship, like me and Honey Girl, is I brought it to my friendships. Mom, how do
Yeah.
you feel about that?
Well,
What do you think you've brought to other relationships from being one of seven, and then also like watching ours?
yeah, well, I mean, just to go back a little bit on that, is that I think growing up the way you did, maybe when you let each other be themselves and like Rock, you would know your sister, just in no matter what happens, like your sisters accept you for who you are. And
It's an
breathe,
unconditional love for each
it
other.
is an unconditional love and breathe the same way.
Mhm.
That no matter what, breed, I mean, Honey Girl and Rockne are there for you. That they love you no matter what. And Honey Girl feel the same way. But I think that helps to develop, especially from a young age, it develops your sense of security
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
kind of like an emotional safety. So that when you do, connect with your friends as you're growing up, you feel like you have this sense of security or stability, or is a little bit of like a safety net or something for your say even emotional well-being.
Yeah.
They make you happy, but you can also be sad with them and you can share that with them, and
Mhm.
feel like you're always going to be accepted.
Mhm.
And I mean, for me, I have six siblings that I'm very close to. But I also have best friends that
Mhm.
I share different type of relationship, but yet I have the emotional security or the stability and the love and the loyalty that I have from friends too, so that I could
Mhm.
consider, some of my bestest friends like my sisters,
Mhm.
even though they're not, blood related, but they still give me that, kind of important things in relationships.
Yeah.
But a lot of that comes from the beginning of developing relationships with your siblings.
Yeah, I mean, I think for what I would say one of my love languages is certainly quality time. Um, and
Yeah, that's good.
I think as kids, like we spent so much quality time together. Where I talked about in the last episode with friendships, I think it's a good framework for just relationships in general is that emotional bank account. And I think you know, because we always like to hang out with each other and we were downstairs, you guys would come outside and
Mhm.
play, we'd walk through the woods and do all those things. And then but it was also reciprocated too. Like
Yeah,
I
you
was
were
also
always
downstairs,
watching
like
the
Disney
shows we wanted to
Channel.
watch. Yep.
We were singing the songs, like,
Mhm.
and just being goofy. And those are like all those deposits into the emotional bank account that I think over the years have stacked up pretty high. And there's been so many more deposits than there have been withdrawals into that account. Like absolutely. Where which I think is great because it's honestly it was so much fun then on like a different level than it is kind of now as our relationship transitions into adulthood where like now it's even I think best of it is like when we were all in college, right? Was that like we genuinely enjoyed going out and hanging out with each other. Like it was that we voluntarily wanted to do that. It was like we wanted to go out and hang out with each other. And even as it is now, it's still like the funnest times. Like, no, we want to go out and
Yeah.
like, have a couple drinks together or just be social together.
Yeah.
And then as that's kept going, it's like, hey, we're gonna bring a friend, or I'm going out with my friends if you want to come. It's like your interaction with our interaction with each other's friends too. It's like everybody just kind of comes together and it's just a fun time and we want to hang out with each other. It's not like it doesn't feel like a burden to be like, man, I gotta do these family things and you gotta spend time and like we don't ever feel we generally if we could pick people to hang out with, we're picking each other to hang out with.
Yeah.
Which I
Yeah.
think is pretty cool and like I appreciate that.
And I think too, on kind of like the opposite end of that, it's like with friends, you can go through so many phases, and sometimes it's like, I don't know, like maybe you don't feel like you are like getting invited to things, but it was like with us, we always had like I could just go home and hang out with you or hang out with Honey Girl. Like I never felt left out because I always had you guys at home or anything, like stuff like that. It's like if you go through phases in life, but like your siblings are always there with you, like you just never feel alone.
Yeah, definitely. I'll just start to wrap this up. A couple of just fun questions. Well, we kind of answered this one, but I'll ask mom, who's the funniest?
Well, Honey Girl was always kind of silly. Yeah.
Honey Girl's
That's
the
an
I
easy
Yeah, I think that's an easy one. Honey Girl's the funniest. Who's the most competitive?
I would say Rockne,
one. Yeah.
super competitive in nature.
Pretty easy one, I guess. Reed, if you have any good ones, if you have any good questions to answer.
Oh, like which sibling is what?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if I'm thinking of ones for me, like who's the pickiest? That's
Who's the
definitely
pickiest? Yeah, you're the
like
pickiest.
I know that's me. Or like I don't know, because I always feel like we always say Honey Girl's like easygoing, but Rock, like I feel like you pretty easygoing. Like there's not much that
I'm
like
pretty easygoing.
yeah.
I mean, I definitely do like doing the things that I like to do. So like I'm not really, if I don't want to do it, then
Well, that's true.
I don't want to do it. But I am pretty easygoing.
I'd say Breed or, well, I just gave it away. But as far as, I mean, I think you're all dependable, but Breed's pretty dependable.
Breed's pretty dependable, yeah.
Yeah.
Very dependable and
Breed is yeah,
responsible.
Breed.
Yeah.
Breed
Yeah.
Breed's probably I would say Breed's probably the most dependable.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
say so too. Like you can
Yeah.
count on me
You can
to be
count on
there.
Breed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Breed's definitely the most dependable, I would say.
Mhm.
Mom, who is the easiest to parent?
Well, it's funny because it wasn't Honey Girl. She wasn't the easiest, but
She's probably the most interesting.
Honey was definitely the most interesting,
yeah.
for sure.
So,
Honey's got the most personality.
yeah. Well, she was just tough in the sense that, you know, she didn't care about her grades. She was very content to get a C. You know, nothing phased her. When you're trying to kind of give her a little push or something like, yeah. I mean, she cared more about getting makeup on, when she was 13 than getting her homework done. So things like that, they got a little frustrating. But what was
Who is the easiest to parent?
the easiest to parent?
You won't hurt our feelings.
No,
Doesn't
Breed was pretty easy. I have to say, I mean, just didn't. Breed was pretty easy. She was probably the easiest.
I almost feel like that answer probably changed because your job as a parent really never ends, almost, right?
Yeah,
So there's probably different phases where, you know, each of us one might have been a little bit harder
Yeah.
than
right.
than the
Right.
other.
I would agree with that. Actually, I'm going to share this just because I want to share it. Like Bree did say something to me one time as a parent, because as a parent, you learn from your children as well. But if you know your kids are good kids and making good decisions and you really don't have major concerns, just because as a parent you might not agree with what they like it wouldn't be your choice. But Bree said to me one time, she asked me the question, do you trust us? And I said, well, of course I do. And she goes, well, then trust us. So
That's very wise.
I know.
just like to give a parents like a little step back and say like, what, your children are on their own journey, and like just let them do it what they're meant to do. They'll figure it out. And as long as you trust, if the answer to that question is yes, I do trust them, then that's the answer. Let them go. Let them do it. Just be there to support them. And again, the siblings support each other. So it's when you, as a parent, like, I can't be there all the time for all of you. It actually makes me feel good to know that Breed or Rockne, you have each other and Honey Girl to depend on, to call, to talk to them. That it just makes me feel great that you have each other, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that safety and sense of security is great. Like, one of the best things about having like Honey Owned Breed is that I always know that I have somebody in my corner. Doesn't matter really what is going on. Like, I always have them in my corner no matter what to go to. Like, because then the one thing that I think we have is you see through all kind of like the BS. So like, if say you're going through something, or something super hard, like, you're really just there for comfort. You're not trying to like, it's just someone's like you can feel safe around at all times, no matter what.
Mhm.
And so, that safety and security, knowing that like no matter what, like Honey Your Own Breed are always going to be there. It could be a phone call. It doesn't matter. They're always going to have my back. And of course, obviously, no matter what I'll do, I would always have Honey Your Own Breed's back. Doesn't matter what the situation is.
Well, I think too, as a parent, you're always trying to fix your kids a little bit, whether it's like a big problem or even just an emotional thing. It's like you want to kind of be there, give advice and try to fix things. Where siblings are probably there just to listen and kind of just not fix the problem, but just be there to support. And maybe
Right.
sometimes that's all you need. And also maybe keep you in check if you know that you're having issues, or maybe you're going down a bad path or making a wrong decision or doing something. Like, your siblings can be there to keep you in check as well, you
Yeah,
know?
and I
Definitely.
I think me too. And I said this about my friends too, but it's still the same. As like, everything in the world is okay when I'm with my siblings, you know?
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
like, I think we just have I think I said this. I asked Hunter what do you think our dynamic was, and she said it's just definitely goofy. I'm like, it really doesn't matter how I'm feeling or what's going on. Like, anytime I'm around either one of you, I just feel like I don't know, it's just like
Yeah.
that emotion or whatever, it just like goes away, and automatically I go back to like a 10-year-old kid. It's just every single time it's
Yeah.
just being goofy and funny and like weird. I think that's a huge part of our dynamic and how we interact with each other. It's just being goofy and being funny and just being naturally ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely so true, but, like, I mean, us, like, like, you guys would be the first to tell me if I was doing something and, like, you're like, "That's just not you," like, checking each other in that way, like how mom was saying, like,
Yeah,
you
and
guys
we're not
would
like
be the
all up in
first
each
to
other's
know if I
business
was
either.
doing something, like, that wasn't, like, right for me, and
Yeah,
I
I
feel like
mean, we're
you're
not
trying.
all up in each other's business, Breed, right? I mean, I don't think
No,
so.
no.
And like, we don't. I mean, we let each other be whatever. But like, if something's really wrong or something's really off track, like, somebody will step in and say
Yeah,
something. But we're
yeah.
not like all up in each other's business, making. I mean,
No, and that's funny
we have
because I
each
feel like
other's.
we don't have to be like,
No.
you guys are the first people I want to talk to if I have something going on,
Yeah,
like happy or, like sad. Like, you guys are my first call in anything. So in that way, I feel like we know a lot about each other, not because like we're nosy or like in each other's business, but just because it's like, all right, if I need to talk, like I'm calling you or
yeah.
Honey Girl.
And last, this could be a good one. What's once, and we'll keep this on here just because mom is on here too. Bree, what's one secret that you kept from mom and dad? Time to admit it.
One secret, like for one of you or Honey Girl,
No, for yourself. What's
for
something you
myself.
kept from mom and dad?
God.
Don't worry, you won't get in trouble now.
But now I know. Now it's like a little too late.
No judgment.
Secret I kept from mom and
I could tell you my favorite one about Honey Girl, even though she got caught.
what?
I think Honey Girl threw a party one time, but she threw the beer cans in the backyard and didn't even make it out of the fence.
That was me and Honey Girl.
Oh, that was you too?
Dad
Oh,
found
see?
them. I was like, Dad never goes back in the woods. Like he went back the next day and found the twisted tea switch. And he was like, I found one. I know I'm gonna find more. But I don't know. I guess probably
That counts as one love bug.
yeah. Yeah.
It
I mean,
counts as
Honey and I
one.
are definitely partners in crime in that way, so. What
But
about you?
Mom,
What's yours? What are
well,
yours?
what's mine? What's one thing I never told mom and dad? That's a good one. What's one thing I never told mom and dad?
I know, I'm trying to think.
Hmm.
I mean, we were pretty good.
I don't know. There's not really anything. Probably, I don't know. I mean, because I feel like a lot of like the stuff that would come would be like if we were partying or doing something. But like, I feel like I did a lot of my partying with dad.
Yeah.
So
I
I
mean,
don't
I guess
know.
like sneaking out and like stuff like not being where you're supposed to. Like, I mean, of
Yeah,
course,
something like that. But
it's
I
not
mean,
like it was like anything horrible. Like, I'd be
oh
like, oh my God, I could never tell mom that. Like, I mean, I would tell you
yeah,
now.
I don't really think I have anything. I mean, because normally dad would just be like, all right, I'll be like, I'm leaving, and be like, okay.
And like you and dad, like, I mean, I feel like we were like pretty open,
We were well
like,
behaved. Like we weren't really getting in trouble.
Well, I had the other rule besides you guys not fighting with each other was, and again, fairly, you may disagree if I say I was lenient. Maybe I wasn't so lenient because I did have it. There was a strictness about me, but the rules were no drugs. I
Well,
mean,
yeah,
there's where I put my foot down, and I didn't really surveil you guys. I didn't
Mhm.
follow you on, the blue dot on the phone. I didn't
yeah,
whatever, like track you, but
Well, I feel like I felt like you were really lenient. Like you would let us do anything, but when you said no, you meant no, and we weren't allowed to ask again.
yeah,
Like
it's like
that was kind of like your thing.
yeah.
yeah, and so and
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I guess we don't really have a good answer for that one. We don't
Mhm.
really have a good answer for that one.
No, I'm
It's a
trying
secret
to
that we've
think.
kept from mom and dad. We don't have a
Once
good
I
one.
get off, I'll probably think of one, but I'm trying to think of like if all three of us we were like, oh, we could never tell mom and dad this.
No,
Like
I
if
don't
we
think
ever
so.
did anything together where it was like,
No.
Somehow we'd always find out
So
anyway.
yeah,
that's the thing. I mean, parents always
Eventually,
know.
eventually
mom.
it would come out.
What's this one's from mom before we wrap it up here. Is mom, what's some advice, say somebody's listening and maybe they don't have the best relationship with their siblings. What's your advice if somebody wanted to maybe take that first step to start to rebuild that relationship with their siblings?
Well, that's a great question because there's plenty of that out there.
Yeah. And like we're very blessed that we don't have that problem. And so I realize everybody's not that blessed.
Right. Number one, there has to be forgiveness. So, whatever has created that divide, there has to be, like, sometimes it's just good to take a step back and let your ego go. Like you don't have to be right. You don't have to make that other person, that sibling, I think a lot of times you're trying to prove a point, and if the sibling doesn't understand your point or something, it's just like a bickering back and forth. I think if you let a lot of that go, being right, just letting your own ego go, letting your walls down, letting your guard down, and opening up, and then having like an understanding and a forgiveness for whatever has
Yeah.
caused the divide. I don't think it's always going to happen with everybody because it takes two people. So it would have to be that on both sides, that both people would have to want it. But, open conversations, and a big thing, again, even with siblings, it's with any relationship, is really emotional security and safety. Like you should
Mhm.
Yeah.
feel safe and not like you're not going to be judged and you're not going to be crucified because I say something or I feel something. And maybe even lowering expectations. Like if
Hmm.
you have certain expectations for
Yeah.
certain people, maybe, that they just don't meet those expectations, just, kind of let things go a little bit. If you really want to heal a relationship that create the bond, you have to start, you have to start somewhere. And I think it would be like letting your walls down and, just talking and having that open conversation.
Yeah.
Maybe
Ego.
start in small steps.
Yeah. Ego and feeling the need to be right can really, prevent us from making, uh, developing and fixing some relationships. Well,
I mean,
I
if
think we could talk about this
Mhm.
all day,
yeah,
but we're gonna wrap it up here. And I just want to say, how much I love you guys, Mom and Breed, and of course, Honey Girl, even though she's not here, and how grateful I am to have you guys in my life. So to
thank
everyone listening, if you got siblings, take a moment to reach out to them, whether they're close or you've drifted apart. It's never too late to strengthen and reconnect those bonds with family. So thank you guys for being here. It means the world to me. And
yeah.
always
Love
please
you,
subscribe,
Phil. Love you.
leave a
Bye. I love
review,
you.
Yep. And show the love.
and
Just share
Hmm.
the love with your siblings. Show them love. And I think that, probably saving it the best for last, that's a big component, is show them and tell them that you love them.
yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you guys. And don't
Bye.
forget, subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with somebody who you might think needs to hear it. And this has been the You Can't Fool You podcast. We'll catch you next time.
Bye.